inventory your IT assets. If you don't measure and know what your IT assets are, well, then only the threat actors will. The hardest time to decide what's important is in a crisis. So your IT assets inventory is your first step to building that internal awareness of what's critical to your business and why. This is a management conversation. It's an important inventory to prioritize IT initiatives to help manage risk. You're prioritizing even normal IT operations. If you have an outage or there's a support incident, is it important to your business or is it routine? If it's affecting a critical business operation system, you can say, hey, we know this is critical business operations. Here's the impact to us. It helps you quantify what's meaningful. And keep in mind, at the start, I talked the difference between indicators and events, and incidents and breaches are what's meaningful to you. This inventory gives you a guide in business terms about what's meaningful to you. This is all about being prepared in adverse conditions, whether it's theft or legal issues or regulatory requirements. So what's an IT asset? What do you want to consider putting on this list? I'll use the same 5 categories from the cyber defense matrix that we looked at earlier: devices, apps, networks, data, users. So number 1, list each of the computers that you have. And if that's too much to start with, list your network servers and your infrastructure equipment. If you're ready to get to that detail, add in your printers, your security cameras, your door access controllers, your video doorbells, your wireless access points. Each one of these assets is on your network somewhere, and it could have vulnerabilities such that you can decide if they merit risk management. Now, what are the software tools or online services that you actually use to do your work? Those are your apps, from your accounting application to your email application to your CRM application to the web browser that you use to the application suite you use to the utility that Joe down the hall installs only on his computer to transfer files to the payroll processing vendor that no one else in the office knows about. The networks are the connections between the devices and the applications. Networks are responsible for transiting information or making secure connections between 2 points. While we can't control the internet, we can make a secure connection between us and a vendor for data interchange. And for example, in that secure connection becomes an asset that needs controls and security consideration to protect it. We have a business dependency on that connection working, and that we can trust it. It's got integrity, it's got availability, it's got confidentiality. Moving on to the next one, data is your business information. What is your business information? What are the types of things that you have? Where are they kept? Customer lists, customer orders, research and development, marketing plans, business financials, privileged client information. And then the last one is users, and those are your people and their identities, but it's also their ability to securely log into your environment, that you can trust that the person who says that they're logging in really is that person, the permissions that they have, and the things that they do that are directly attributable to them. So your list might look something like this, and we'll start with just 2 columns. Type, item. My example environment has just 8 items in it, and yours might have 10 or 100 or 1,000. It's a living thing, and if you start with what you think is most important today, your colleagues will add their own items to the conversation, and it'll grow over time to become more complete. That's okay. Just get started with 1 or 2 items, and you can go through this exercise. To our list, we're going to add 3 more columns because we want to use this asset list to know what's important. And important means asset sensitivity. So we're going to do that same, or we're going to use those same 3 axes that I talked about at the start: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is, well, it's the answer to the question of what's the business impact to me if this got into the wrong hands? Is that a low risk? Is that a medium risk? Or is that a high risk? What's the business impact if it was just lost and gone forever? That's availability. If I couldn't ever get to that information again, is that a high impact? Is that a medium impact? Is it a low impact? If I can't get to it for a day or a week, is that high, medium, or low? You decide what's high, medium, and low, what makes sense to you. Finally, we're talking integrity, and what's the business impact if somebody changes this without me knowing or without my approval? Would we detect it? Would it break other processes? Would it break anything critical to our business? So again, we want to keep things simple. So let's rate each IT asset as low, medium, or high on each of these 3 sensitivity axes. So now our starting inventory looks like this. And looking at this hypothetical example, and you can probably conclude, and it's simplified, from a business perspective, you probably want to be most concerned with protecting your QuickBooks app and access to it and its data integrity. You're probably least concerned with the security camera, ironically, which isn't critical to day-to-day business operations in this example, but it does have some confidentiality concerns, because if a threat actor got access to it, presumably they could see video from inside the office or the office building. And it does have some integrity sensitivity since it's a computer by itself. And while it's small and a threat actor might overlook it, if they were able to compromise a vulnerability on that little computer running its own software, they could potentially use it to discover and launch other attacks within your networks in the future. One of the things that we see often is somebody brought an Alexa or something in from home, and they've connected it up to the business Wi-Fi. Connected up to the guest Wi-Fi all day long. We don't have anything sensitive on the guest Wi-Fi. Do not bring in devices from outside the office and connect them to the trusted office network. There's confidential things. We need the integrity. We need the availability. So the hard part about this inventory is probably filling out the start of what the items are. And then it's pretty easy to start saying, okay, is that high, medium, or low for each one of those sensitivities? So let's go into how you start populating a list of items. And there's a couple of ways to get started with that. So your IT team can help. They probably have, or they can provide a list of the devices that they know about, that your IT team knows about. They know about the software, or at least some of the software, and they probably know about the SaaS or the cloud applications that you use. After all, your IT team probably has to help set up users on the most common ones that you use when you hire someone. So you can ask and you can get this starting list, and there's the first part of your inventory. But your colleagues can also help. And in fact, most of this IT asset exercise is about business needs. The knowledge you and your team have of what's actually important to you, what people use, where it's kept, and what it depends upon. There are probably pieces of software and people in your office that are storing information in places that no one else knows about, that only they do. Well, the only way you can find out is to ask. So you'll imagine, or you can imagine, that you'll probably get some blank looks. If you walk in and say, great, I'm building an IT asset list, tell me all the IT assets that you've got, no one in the office that hasn't attended this is really going to know what you're talking about. So try some questions like these and listen to the answers. And in one answer, you might hear 5 separate IT assets that are potentially important to the organization. Confidentiality, integrity, availability. I didn't realize that you have this one piece of software that's critical to the way we process orders. No one knew about that piece of software, but I'm adding it on the list. Knowing that they're there is the first step to making informed choices to protect them.